you normally slaughter and you normally eat like a sheep or a deer or a goat or a camel or according to certain scholars a horse also. Right? So there's certain animals that you slaughter and you eat, like a bull and a cow, those type of things. If a person slaughters it according to the Sharia, meaning he slaughters it and he cuts both veins and the ear pipe and the food pipe, saying the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all those things, and then that animal will be pure, tahir, the meat will be halal, and the hide itself will be halal. Meaning he doesn't have to tan it. Right? He doesn't have to tan it. He can use it as is. But many people just put salt on it, allow it to try to remove the smell from it. But he doesn't have to go through the tanning process. What we're speaking about here is either he finds carrion, meaning he comes across the animal, and the animal's dead already. Or it's an animal that you can't eat, whether you slaughter it or not. Right? The hide of that animal would be najis. That's so how does it become pure so you can make use of it? That he needs to tan it. So that's what we're speaking about here now. So the asl of it, the foundational ruling is that it's impure. So how do you remove that? By tanning it. So here he says now that the hide of a dead animal, if tanned. So there's many here in the commentary. He speaks about different other things that I looked up the English words of it, and just bear with me. He says over here that it's basically yeah. So it's certain. He mentions over here qaraz or qarad. It's a achiac, I think it's called achiac bark or pod, rich in tannins. Right. So or oak galls, I think it's called, or allium. Allahu alam. But it's basically certain things, natural things, and the purpose here is for it to remove pewtery, moisture within the hide that causes it to rot, basically. So the process here, you need to move that moisture out, right, so that it doesn't, and that moisture that's left within the hide, innately found in the hide, needs to be removed for it to become pure. Right? Long story short, nowadays in contemporary uses, they use sometimes synthetic things. They might use natural things. The main thing is to remove this pewtery, pewterity, I think it's called, like the moisture that allows it to rot innately. That must be removed. When that is done, and then it becomes at a state now where you might just wash it, and then you can use it. So if you're taking a hike, mashallah, and you find a leopard on the mountain, in Benchkloof, there's leopards, huh? Go to Benchkloof, there's a kramat also there, so you want to go visit the kramat, and mashallah, you come across a leopard, you think, oh, mashallah, I'm going to use the skin of the leopard, for example. So then what are you going to do now? You need to tan it. You can't just use the skin like that. So what must you do now? You need to find something. And the idea is the end result. The end result is to remove this moisture, and then once it is dry now and this moisture is removed, and then the person must wash it, and then he can use it as a rug or whatever the case may be. Make a bag, make a backpack, sling, whatever he wants to do. Right? Some of the Zulus, they make the hat, right? That thing there with the hat, and those type of things. So if you want to use it, you can use it, but it needs to be tanned. The only thing that cannot become pure, or the two things that cannot become pure, whether it goes through the tanning process or not, is the pig and the dog in the madhab of Imam Shafee. That's because the pig and the dog innately is impure. It's innately impure. Everything about the dog in the Shafee madhab and everything about the pig in and of itself is najasa. Right? So it cannot be purified. Right? So you find a dog, you can't use the skin. It's najasa. That's the second thing. And the third thing is that which did we cover everything? And now just on. ثم يصير الجلد كثوب متنجس. I said that. And then once it's tanned, and then it becomes a cloth, a piece of cloth that is contaminated, then it's basically cleaned thereafter with normal water, and then it can be used. Now, Then the next thing he says, ma sara hayawanan. That which metamorphosed into life would become something life like such as maggots emanating from a dead carcass. Right? So dead carcass, like we mentioned now, is carrion. It's dead. Allah says, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ الْمَيْتَةَ وَالدَّمَ وَلَحْمَ الْخِنْزِيرِ. Allah has made it impermissible for you to eat carrion. Why? Because carrion, something that has not been slaughtered according to the Sharia, is considered dead, and it's a carcass. You can't eat it, right? You can't use it for anything. So that asal now, the foundational ruling is that it's impure. However, if we were to say, according to certain scholars, that worms or maggots form from that meat, right? Some scholars say that Allah creates it in that meat. Whatever you want to say, but the maggots that comes from there now, is it tahir? Is it pure or is it impure? So that's what he's speaking about here. So the meat now, which is carrion, it's originally impure, then it turns completely into worms, to maggots. That maggots is now considered pure. Even though it came from something that is impure. Now then, that's basically the end of this chapter. I don't think we need to spend much more time on this. Another thing that's also not mentioned in this text is something that مَمِمَّا يَسْتَحِيلُ أَيْضًا, that becomes halal or becomes pure, is it is said by our fuqaha that the musk that forms in the male deer musk, there's a gland in the abdomen of a deer musk. That's where musk comes from. And so it's inside the body, and it's a gland, and obviously it forms not directly. I checked it, and it doesn't actually come from the blood, but the blood obviously now mixes with it, and so on and so forth. And that musk, so technically you would think that it's najis because it comes from inside the body of the deer, but it would be considered pure. So musk would be considered pure even though it comes from the inside, from a gland of a deer. Then also laban, milk, and it comes from the inside of a body, and let's say the origin is blood, Allahu A'lam, and that would be considered pure. And also money which is sperm. Sperm is pure in the madhab of Imam Shafee rahimahullah ta'ala. So that's the end of the chapter. We can continue insha'Allah ta'ala. Then he now goes on to say that faslun najasat thalatha or thalathun, that there are three impurities, and this is different categories of najasa, of filth, impurities. Number one is heavy impurity. Number two is the light impurity. And number three is intermediate impurity. Najasa mughalladah, najasa mukhaffafa, and najasa mutawassitah. So why does he break it up? He breaks it up into different degrees because every level or different degree requires us a different level of cleaning. That's how you approach the cleaning process, or you do the cleaning of it in a different way for every category. Right? Therefore he breaks it up. So the first one is the heavy impurity. And under the heavy impurity is the impurity that arises from contact with a dog or with a pig. And that's the two animals that we spoke about now, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or in the Shafi madhab, they say that it's impure and it cannot be purified. So this is a heavy type of impurity, that if a clothing or a space or a place is contaminated by this animal, then the cleaning process of that is also heavy. Right? So he says, بِجَمِيعِ أَجْزَائِهَا. Why? Because the kalb, the dog, and the khinzir, the pig, every part of it is najis. Whether it is attached to the dog, whether it is comes loose or comes apart from the dog or the pig, is still considered impure. Now, وَفَرْعِ أَحَدِهِمَا. Then he also says anything that comes off the offspring of either one of the two of them. What does this mean? Right? So he says, this is now just, I'm just showing you now an example of how the fuqaha, the jurists, they just have this way of thinking. If this could happen, right? like a presumption if you like to. So they say if you have if a dog, obviously the offspring of two dogs will be a dog. But he just says, so imagine if you find a case where a sheep and a dog now mates, and the offspring of that too. So a sheep is something that is pure, a dog is something that is impure. So the offspring that comes from the two of them will be impure. It will take the ruling of the heavier of the two. So no one ever saw that. But I'm just saying, if that is possible, then the ruling would be to follow the ruling of the dog. Now, so that's the heavy one. The light impurity is the bawlu sabi. It says here number 2, the light impurity is the urine of a male infant who has only been fed breast milk and has yet to reach the age of 2. Tamam? So there's a few things we need to speak about here. The first thing he says, the light impurity is urine of a male infant. Right? Why does he say male infant? I don't know. But if you want to check scientifically, they don't give a clear indication that there is a difference between the urine of a infant male or female infant. Right? There's no real distinct difference. But why the fuqaha mention the male? Because perhaps the happening that took place was a male infant that sat on the lap of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he relieved himself. Right? And then the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the Sahaba, leave him. Allow him to finish himself. And then when he finished, relieved himself on the lap of Rasulullah, on his clothing, he just ordered for a bowl of water, and he put his hand in and he sprinkled the water over. And perhaps it's because the happening took place with a young boy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam. Then also the second thing is that the young infant must have been fed breast milk only. Like meaning if this youngster under 2 years old has been fed solids or solid food, and then it will move now from the light impurity to the intermediate impurity. Again, what's the whole difference here? The method of cleaning. The method of cleaning the najasa differs. So generally, and this is the encouragement from the Quran Kareem, is that the baby should drink milk, or the longest period is for 2 years. At حولين كاملين ولوالدات يرضعن أولادهن حولين كاملين لمن أراد أن يتم الرضاعة. That's what the ladies, the mothers, would feed their children for 2 years, right? Complete 2 years, right? So meaning, so if the baby were to now eat solids, if we given solids, even water, they say, even the baby were to be given water, right? And it's not for medicinal purposes. Just because maybe sometimes the baby struggles with bringing up milk, or wins, and it becomes the milk curdles in the stomach. Then the old people would say, give it some water, give the baby some water, then it will allow the baby to either pasta, the curdled milk, whatever the case may be. So if he gives him water, the baby drinks now water that's other than milk. Now the urine that comes from that baby now is no longer the light type of impurity, it moves to the intermediate impurity. Or it gives any solids, purity, that food, or whatever the case may be, biscuits, whatever the case may be, they give the baby. And the baby no longer now falls under the light impurity, it goes to the intermediate. There are certain things that are not considered in this ruling. Exceptions to the rule would be the date when making tahniq. Right? When the baby, when they give the tasmiyah, the dupmal, like we said in Cape Town, at sunnah, not even connected to the dupmal, but it normally happens in Cape Town with the dupmal. For the imam that gives the name, he bites a part of the date, and he chews on the date, and he puts it on the palate of the baby. That's called tahniq. And it comes from the word hanak, which is the palate. Right? He feeds the baby basically. And this was the sunnah of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And medically they say there's great benefits for the baby. And it's only actually the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam used date. He didn't use honey, to the best of my knowledge. Right? I see many people, they give a date and they give honey and they give sugar sometimes also. The date is the sunnah. Alright, so Rasulullah bit a part of the date, he chewed on it, and then he take a piece of the date and he put it on the palate of the baby. So that's solids. So does it now change the ruling of the urine? No, it doesn't. It's the exception to the rule. Another exception to the rule, that's why it says here, um, who has only been fed breast milk. And the meaning here is لِلتَّغَذِّي, for nutritional purposes. Meaning if he takes medicine and it's other than milk, it's not considered those. That's also another exception to the rule. No. So if you have a young baby under 2 years old, he's drinking milk, however, he had to take medicine. Right? And now this baby now, you must know the males, especially when they open the nappy, and sometimes it's nice surprise. Fountains. Right? The fountain is shooting all over the place. So now, how must you clean that now? That's what we're speaking about. Right? So there, when it's a urine of a young boy, he never had any solids, he never drank anything other than milk. So now you can just take water and just sprinkle it over everywhere, and then that's it, and it's clean. We'll get to that now in the next chapter. So I'm just trying to highlight for you why is it important. Why is he mentioning all this? Because it's the method of cleaning, it differs. And then number 3 is the intermediate impurity is the remainder of impurities. So anything besides these two will fall in this category. Right? Anything. Khamr, we just spoke about, wine. Nabid, which is anything that ferments, any fruit that ferments. Maytah, carrion. Urine of a person that's above 2 years old or is under 2 years old that had solids, it doesn't fit the criteria we just mentioned now. Blood, pus, regurgitation, vomit, stool, anything else, any type of filth other than the 2 categories we spoke about now will fall in the intermediate category. Right? So that's a different categories. So you have the heavy, dog, and swine or pig. Then you have the light, which is a young minor under 2 years old, has not been fed anything except milk. Alright, and that is, unless it's something for medicinal purposes, then that's fine. Alright, then the middle, in between that is everything else. Everything else is between that. We'll make a start in the next chapter. Then, inshallah, we can continue in our next lesson, inshallah ta'ala. Just check how long we're going for. We still have time. So the next chapter, he says, Section 9, heavy impurity is cleansed by 7 washes after removing the core of the impurity, one of the washes being with earth mixed with water. Right? And this is a dog. A dog or a pig. Very seldom people in contact with pigs, but a lot of the times with dogs. On our class with Sheikh Abdul Rahman on Sunday, we spoke about this in detail, right? And so one thing that I really want to take from that lesson and to share with everyone else here is that at the end of the day, what we're going to discuss now, what we need to keep in our minds is that at the end of the day, the dog is the creation of Allah. Right? The dog is the creation of Allah. And I know we grew up, having this aversion to dogs. Like you see a dog and it's almost like, get away from it. And that's mainly because perhaps you don't want the dog to touch you, then you need to wash your clothing 7 times, one with soil. Right? But if we show this to our children, the children are going to grow up with them, they're also going to have an aversion to dogs, etc. We were saying that after the class, I don't know if this is something that is widespread, but when you were younger, and you walk in, you see a dog, and you put out your tashahud finger, you point to the dog, and you bacha your tashahud. Almost like it's going to push the dog away. Almost like the dog is a devil or something. Right? But the dog is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And there's other views in the other madhab that allows. But on Sunday we were speaking about, and I really advise you, if you really have some time and you want to increase your knowledge in terms of how to deal with a dog and can you have a dog, the lesson that we studied on Sunday morning with Sheikh Abdul Rahman is a very important lesson. Can you buy a dog? When can you buy a dog? Is it permissible? This and that, yeah? That's what we'll discuss on Sunday. We can't discuss it now. What we can discuss now is though, when does this contamination happen? Right? So there's a maxim in our Sharia that reads, Jaf bijaf la yunajis bila khilaf. Jaf, bijaf, la yunajjis bila khilaf. Meaning that if the dog is dry and the next party is also dry, and then the filth does not transfer over, right? There's no contamination that happens. Meaning that if a dog comes by and he just brushes over you, right? And your clothing is not moist, and the dog is also not moist, then nothing happened. There's no transfer, there's no contamination, there's no transfer of filth. One of the two parties must be moist, right? So either my clothing is moist or the dog is moist, and then if he walks past and he brushes on my leg, and then the transfer will happen. Then the contamination happens. So obviously the saliva of the dog is moist. So that is going to be filthy. Right? So I thought I just mentioned that. Why? Because sometimes you might just be sitting somewhere having a nice picnic, or a dog who's and just walks over your belongings. So now I must now wash everything now. 7 times, one will soil. So yeah, look first. If the dog was moist, right? Or the blanket was moist, then yes, you need to wash it. And the asl is, the original ruling is that it's not. The dog is not moist. Right? The dog is not all the time moist and is walking around, is wet. Right? So the asl is that it's not. So if you're unsure that the dog was wet or your clothing was wet, then he wasn't wet. Right? Unless you know for sure that he was wet or you know your clothing is wet. So don't let shaitan waswasa. You don't know. The dog is not, the origin is that he's not wet. He walks over, the clothing wasn't wet. Alhamdulillah, okay, don't have to. Unless his saliva now falls on. And then you have to obviously wash. So I thought that's important to mention. Right? So it's not just merely the touching of the dog that contaminates. That you need to, either party must be moist. Basically, moisture needs to be there for the transfer of the filth to happen. Contamination happens. It becomes impure. Right? And how do you clean it? So he says here it has to be cleaned 7 washes after removing the core of the impurity. What does he mean by the core impurity? So if the saliva falls onto a piece of clothing, and you can smell these, you can either smell it, you can see it, or they also say taste it. Don't taste it again. But I'm just saying that if the attributes of the najasa are still there, that's the core impurity that needs to be removed. So that must be washed first away, maybe using soap, whatever the case may be. Alright? So now it's gone. However, the ruling of that place is still filthy until you remove it the way that the author is speaking here now. So now it needs to be washed 7 times, once with soil. The easiest way to do this and the preferred way to do is to make like a mixture. Right? To take some water, put some soil, make a mixture, apply it to the area, if you know where the area is, and then rub it over the area, then wash it off. That's considered one wash. And now you just need to rinse it 6 times. Alright, then it's washed. Sometimes we overthink it. The only problem is you don't know where it is now. Where is the najasa now? Or this, I don't want to make you scared now, no? But if the person has one garment that is contaminated with najasa, mashallah, he throws it in the washing machine. He throws it in the washing machine. MashaAllah. Everything in the washing machine mixes now with the najasa, and everything is becoming into moisture. And so everything technically becomes najasa. Right, so you must be careful. Again, this is the ruling in the Shafi'i madhab. So the best thing is to know, if you know that the garment is filthy, touch the dog, whatever the case may be, and then clean it outside first, alongside in the basin or whatever, and then maybe throw it in the washing machine thereafter. So again, the best way to do this is to take some soil, add some water, make a paste, put it on the area, wipe it over the area, and then rinse it off. 7 times. Right? If for let's say for argument's sake, a person he doesn't remove the core impurity first. Now he washes it 7 times. After he washes it 7 times, it's still there. You can still smell it. Right? That means that he didn't remove it. Now he has to do the process over again. Right? Until the core impurity is removed, and then he has to do the 7 washes thereafter. Right? So it will be considered one wash. So even after he does 7 washes, and then he sees after the 7 washes, now the core impurity is only gone. Now it's considered one wash. Right? Now he has to do another 6 washes. But again, why am I reading it in this way? Because it says here, the impurity is cleansed by 7 washes, when after removing the core impurity. That's whatever you want to use, you can use soap first. You want to remove the core impurity, and then now you have to wash it with soil and water. No. This is the view in the Shafi'i madhab. I think in the Hanafi madhab, if I'm not mistaken, I read the fatwa that everything besides the saliva on a dog would be considered pure, right? Except its saliva. And however in the Hanafi madhab, the 7 washes is not required. It's recommended once with soil. The 7 washes once with soil is not a requirement, however it's recommended. However, it's always best to tread on the side of caution when it comes to your ibadah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we've gone for now 15 minutes, even on the stream might have been a bit shorter. So we apologize for those who are watching the stream. The rule, not the rule, but the intention is not to go for too long. Maybe we can just do the second one and leave the last one. The second one is how do you clean the light form of najasa? I actually spoke about this previously now in the previous chapter. Mukhaffafa. So he says over here that the light impurity is cleansed by sprinkling water upon the impurity after removing the core of it. Again, the sifat, when it says core, the attributes of the najasa must be removed. Right? So if the urine of a minor that hasn't ate or consumed anything except milk comes onto the clothing or on a place, and then it still smells like urine. Right? Now that smell must be removed first. So you can use handy, you can use soap, sunlight, whatever the case may be, and now the smell is gone. MashaAllah, the smell is gone. So what now? Now the best thing to do is first allow it to dry slightly, right? To take the most of the moisture out, either using maybe toilet paper, damp it until the most of the moisture comes out. Why? Because where that moisture is still being there, that means the najasa is still there. Right? Until it dries out, until it dries away, then that attribute is now gone. Right? Then thereafter you can take some water and sprinkle over it. Right? That's easy. So basically it needs to dry out. However, if it's there and there's no attribute, there's no smell, there's no taste, there's no color, and then you can sprinkle there over, and then it will remove, the garment will be purified. And the person can make salah in. Khair, insha'Allah ta'ala. I think we can al-mukhaffafa. You want to just rather do the last one? The last one, is it too long? We're going for too long. Okay, let's just complete the chapter, inshallah. Mutawassita. The mutawassita is easy, and this most of the najasa would fall under this category. Right? Urine, blood, right? Then he says the intermediate impurity is divided into 2 types. Tamam. Okay, maybe we shouldn't get into this now. It's going to take long. It's going to take longer than 10 minutes. Right? What's the time now? 25 past. Discernible purity. That's ainiyah, meaning it's something that you can see, smell, or taste. That meaning that its substance is still present. Might as well finish it. Intermediate impurity is divided into two types, right? As discernible or indiscernible. Meaning that you can see it, ayniya in the Arabic language, meaning the smell, the taste, and the color is still there. Alright? So that must be removed. Must be removed with any substance that you want to use to remove it, must be removed. For example, if on my thobe over here, there is blood, a large amount of blood. Alright, so I need to remove it. I need to remove it until it's gone. The color is gone. Sometimes it takes long for the color to come out of blood. You must take the color out, the smell must be gone, everything must be gone. Alright? Now when that is gone now, and now you can rinse it and then it will be purified. Right? Or, now, here it says, as for discernible impurity, it is that which has color, odor, and taste. Thus, removal of these three attributes is obligatory. Now, so if a person just takes his garment and he throws it in the washing machine, and it comes out, and it still smells like the impurity, that means he didn't clean it. It's not pure. Rather now, the entire garment now is full of najasa. Right? Because now the water that now was in the washing machine now became najasa. It's more detailed to it, obviously, if you're going to throw water on top or the water was in the washing machine and you threw the thing in the washing machine. Right? Actually, there's a lot to discuss here. There's actually a lot to discuss here. Right? And then I want to rush through this. Okay, let's just do the first part, and then we will leave the things that are connected to it. So basically, you need to remove the attributes of the najasa. You need to remove the attributes of the najasa. Yeah. So the example I gave was that if the clothing is filthy, everything must be removed, right, before rinsing. And most of us use washing machines, so we need to be very careful when doing this. So another form of impurity that's many times overlooked is what? Is discharge. Alright? Whether it's from a male or a female. And we say that the male, it's called madhi, pre-ejaculate. Alright? Pre-ejaculate that comes out, it might come on the underpants, that is impure. So if it's not washed out correctly, and then the garment is still impure, meaning it will prevent your salah from being valid. Therefore, it's very important to ensure that your clothing is clean and you clean it correctly. Now, so the safest thing to do is to clean it first before throwing it into the washing machine. Because if the washing machine is not a washing machine that does a few cycles, so normally what happens is it will first wash, and then it will rinse, then it will spin, then it will rinse again, then it will spin. Sometimes that process takes a few times. So if that is the case, and the spinning of the washing machine spins the clothing to the degree that if you were to take a garment out and wring it, and no water comes from it, then it's fine. Then you don't have to go through the whole. Then it's safer. Let's just say it's safer. Why? Because then it removes that whole doubt within you. Did the najasa spread or not? Is everyone with me? Why? What's the problem? If there is a garment that has filth on it, right, and it's thrown in water, and this is now you see how the two chapters come together. We spoke about water and a small amount of water. A small amount of water, which is under 210 liters. Right, 200, let's just say approximately 200 liters. If it's less than 200 liters and najasa is thrown in that water, then the water becomes najasa. Then the water becomes filthy. Right, so I know the old type of washing machine is the water first throw in, then you throw the clothing in. So if that clothing is filthy and you throw it in the water, then the water becomes filthy. And everything that goes in that water becomes filthy. However, if the clothing is thrown first, which is most cases what the new automatic machine or washing machines working this way, is you throw the clothing in first, then the water is thrown there over. Then it's fine. Right? The only problem is if it comes out of the washing machine and that filth is still on you, that means it didn't wash away. That means it was just mixing with everything else. Right? So again, the safest thing is the qualities, the attributes need to be removed. The smell, the taste, and the color must be removed completely. And if that is used with other than water, and then it's best to wring it out first to remove all the remaining remnants of the filth, and then rinse it once, and then it will be pure. Tamam? You don't have that? I can see on the faces, I think this is enough for now, inshallah. With that, we'll conclude here, and then we'll do this last category again, because I think there's most cases, this is what we face with on a day-to-day basis. So we'll touch base on this one again before continuing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us understanding. يفقهنا في الدين, grant us understanding of the deen. وعلمنا تأويل, and He teaches the proper interpretation of His deen and His kalam, the kalam of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. واهدنا إلى سواء السبيل كل نية صالحة جامعة بكل كما نواصلنا في الصالح بسر أسرار الفاتحة إلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.